Imagine this: 3 years ago, Londoners were urged to lock in mortgages at historically low rates. People jumped at the chance, taking ultra-low fixed deals sometimes as low as 1.2%. At the time, it felt like a financial miracle: cheap money, stable payments, and the dream of homeownership within reach. Fast forward to today, and that dream is turning into a nightmare. Those once manageable payments have doubled, even tripled for some, forcing families into impossible financial positions. A mortgage that cost £1,200 a month 3 years ago can now be £2,300 or more, and millions of homeowners across the UK are facing this reality. In London, where housing costs were already sky-high, the impact is even more severe. Families are paying 70% to 100% more per month just to stay in their homes. Over 1.6 million mortgage holders are set to roll off fixed-rate deals this year alone. Many fear the looming winter because they know that making ends meet could become a daily struggle. And it's not just homeowners, renters are feeling the squeeze too, as landlords leave the market and rental costs spike. London, once seen as a financial safe haven, is quickly becoming unaffordable for ordinary families. But how did we get here? The seeds were planted in 2020 when interest rates dropped to nearly zero. That flood of cheap money triggered a property frenzy. Home prices soared, everyone rushed to buy, and rates remained temporarily low. But low rates weren't permanent. And now, reality is catching up. Mortgage rates have surged past 5.5%, with some lenders offering deals over 6%. Those on interest-only loans have seen payments double overnight. It's not just a looming risk anymore, it's happening right now, and the consequences are about to ripple through every corner of London's housing market. But it's not just mortgages that are causing chaos. Renting in London has become a struggle of its own. The so-called remortgage cliff is hitting Londoners hard. Millions of homeowners who locked in ultra-low fixed rates during 2020 are now seeing their deals expire. For families who sign up for 1.2% or 1.5% rates, the reality is brutal: their monthly payments have more than doubled. A mortgage that once cost £1,200 per month can now be £2,300 or higher. Across the UK, over 1.6 million mortgage holders are facing this sharp rise, and London, with its already sky-high property values, is feeling the brunt of it. This surge isn't just a statistic. Families are scrambling to adjust budgets, cutting back on essentials, and even considering selling their homes to avoid financial collapse. First-time buyers are frozen out as affordability plummets. Landlords, seeing profits evaporate, are selling off their properties. And the Bank of England has already warned that this is just the beginning. The wave of mortgage stress is only going to grow as more fixed deals expire in the coming months. The impact is compounded for those with interest-only loans, where monthly costs can double overnight. Remortgaging isn't always an option. Stricter rules and stress tests mean many homeowners no longer qualify for loans that match their previous deals. These mortgage prisoners find themselves trapped in homes they can no longer afford, unable to refinance or sell, while watching costs spiral out of control. The human toll is evident: mounting arrears, rising anxiety, and the fear of losing homes. And this crisis doesn't exist in isolation. The mortgage cliff is triggering a chain reaction across the housing market. Landlords are leaving, first-time buyers can't enter, and rental demand is about to explode. What started as a seemingly minor rise in rates is now reshaping the financial landscape of London entirely. And while homeowners struggle, renters are facing an equally terrifying reality: the London rental market has become a battlefield. The rental market in London has entered uncharted territory. Over the past 2 years, rents have surged by more than 25%, the steepest increase in over a decade. In neighborhoods like Westminster, Camden, and Hackney, the average cost for a one-bedroom flat has jumped from £1,800 in 2022 to £2,400 today. That's an extra £600 a month for the same space, often with no upgrades or improvements. To put that into perspective, £600 could cover most people's council tax, groceries, and transportation combined. For a Londoner earning £36,000 a year, this means nearly half their income goes straight to rent. Competition for rental properties has become fierce. Letting agents report over 150 inquiries for single listings, with viewings filling up in minutes and entire queues stretching around blocks. Some tenants are even offering 6 months rent upfront, sight unseen, just to secure a flat. Others are bidding above the asking price and still getting turned away. This isn't speculation, it's happening in real time, and it's affecting teachers, nurses, retail managers, and civil servants, people with steady incomes who still struggle to cover basic expenses. Food bank usage among renters in London has risen by 30% in just 2 years, reflecting a city where employment no longer guarantees security. Landlords leaving the market only make things worse. With fewer rental properties available, supply has dried up while demand continues to grow. Families are forced into budget hotels or placed outside the city entirely. Working professionals are increasingly counted among the homeless. The idea of renting without going broke has essentially vanished. This explosion in rents isn't just an economic problem, it's a social crisis. Families are being uprooted, communities fractured, and the stability of daily life thrown into question. And what's driving this exodus of landlords and spike in prices? The answer lies in rising costs, tighter regulations, and policies that are forcing owners out. Rising rents aren't an accident, they're the direct result of landlords fleeing the market. London's housing crisis isn't just about mortgages or rents, it's also fueled by a wave of landlords leaving the market. Buy-to-let property owners, who provide roughly 20% of the UK's rental housing stock, are selling up in record numbers. In 2024 alone, more than 50,000 private rental homes were taken off the market. Entire blocks that once housed tenants are now listed for sale, shrinking supply and making rental properties even harder to find. Why are landlords fleeing? Rising costs and new regulations are crushing profits. Mortgage interest rates have soared, often leaving rental income unable to cover monthly payments. Energy Performance Certificate (EPC) rules require costly upgrades, with individual properties potentially needing £10,000 to £25,000 in improvements. Fire safety regulations introduced after the Grenfell tragedy have forced building-wide cladding replacements, costing landlords tens of thousands more. On top of that, proposed renters' reform bills threaten to remove Section 21 no-fault evictions, a tool landlords have long relied on to manage risk. The result is clear: when landlords leave, supply drops, and tenants are left competing for fewer properties. Rents skyrocket as families bid against each other, often paying months in advance for the privilege of securing a roof over their heads. Some families end up in budget hotels, councils are forced to place tenants outside London, and working professionals, teachers, nurses, and civil servants are increasingly counted among the city's homeless. This exodus isn't just bad news for tenants, it's destabilizing the entire housing ecosystem. Less supply fuels higher rents, which makes affordability worse, which further pushes landlords out. It's a vicious cycle. Every property sold or withdrawn from the rental market tightens the squeeze, creating a scenario where even those with stable incomes are at risk of losing their homes. With landlords leaving and supply collapsing, you might wonder, if demand is so high, why are house prices actually falling? It sounds counterintuitive, but London's housing market is in a strange paradox. House prices are falling, yet affordability is worse than ever. In outer boroughs like Barking and Dagenham, prices have dropped nearly 9%, in Newham and Hounslow, around 7%. On paper, this should be good news for buyers. Lower prices, more opportunities, right? Wrong. Because the cost of owning a home has skyrocketed alongside interest rates. In 2021, a £400,000 mortgage at a 1.9% interest rate meant monthly payments of roughly £1,200. Today, that same loan at 5.9% costs over £2,400, double the amount, for the same house. And that doesn't even factor in deposits, which often run 15 to 25% of the property price. For a modest flat in Zone 3, that's £75,000 upfront. Buyers must also pass stricter stress tests, proving they can handle worst-case scenario rates of 8% or more. Many simply can't qualify. This has created a market gridlock. First-time buyers are frozen out, sellers hesitate to lower prices for fear of negative equity, and transactions have slowed to a crawl. Builders pause projects because financing is difficult, and developers face bankruptcy risks. Even with lower sticker prices, the actual cost of ownership has never been higher. Meanwhile, homeowners who locked in ultra-low rates years ago are facing the remortgage cliff, and the squeeze on existing owners compounds the crisis. This isn't just a minor correction, it's a systemic problem. The dream of homeownership in London is slipping further away, and the illusion that property always increases in value has evaporated. And the people caught in the middle? They're often trapped, unable to move or refinance, the so-called mortgage prisoners. Across London and the wider UK, roughly 1.4 million homeowners are about to come off ultra-low fixed-rate mortgages. Many of these deals were under 2%, meaning that when they expire, monthly payments could triple. Imagine a family paying £1,100 per month suddenly facing £2,800. For many, refinancing isn't an option. They don't qualify under current stress tests, leaving them stuck in a home they can't afford to stay in, sell, or rent out. These are the mortgage prisoners, trapped, bleeding money, and facing an uncertain future. The consequences are severe. Families struggle to make ends meet, arrears rise, and repossessions are becoming more common. The Bank of England has warned of increased mortgage defaults, and the numbers are already reflecting this warning. People who once felt financially secure are now teetering on the edge, caught between ballooning payments and a market that refuses to cooperate. The ripple effects extend beyond homeowners. First-time buyers face frozen opportunities, as sellers won't drop prices and lenders tighten approvals. The rental market tightens further as landlords exit, creating even more competition. And for those trying to sell, buyers are scarce, creating a cycle of inaction and financial strain. The human impact is staggering. Entire families are forced to delay major life decisions, workers are stretched thin, and the stress of potentially losing a home looms over everyday life. This isn't a distant problem, it's happening now, with serious consequences for both individuals and the wider housing market. And while homeowners are trapped, foreign investors and big institutional landlords are retreating, leaving the market without the deep pockets it once relied on. For years, London was the go-to destination for international property investors. Russian oligarchs, Middle Eastern wealth, Chinese buyers, and American capital poured money into the city. Entire towers in Canary Wharf and Nine Elms were sold before they were even built. From 2010 to 2020, foreign buyers spent over £50 billion in London property alone. But today, that era is over. In 2024, foreign investment hit its lowest point since the global financial crisis, and institutional landlords like pension funds and hedge funds are exiting en masse. The reason is simple: the numbers no longer work. Mortgage rates are higher, rental yields are down, and mandatory upgrades like EPC ratings can cost £15,000 to £30,000 per unit. Policy uncertainty is rampant, with eviction bans, rent caps, and tax changes creating high risks for investors. The once reliable profit margins are gone, and with them, confidence in the market. Developers are feeling the pain, too. Projects are being paused, some go bankrupt, and unsold units are being offered at steep discounts. The safety net of cheap money, international investment, and institutional support has vanished, leaving London exposed to market pressures. The myth that property always appreciates is fading, replaced by a sobering reality: owning real estate in London is now risky, costly, and often unprofitable. As the capital's property market loses its global investment appeal, both homeowners and renters face mounting consequences. Without foreign capital to prop up prices and supply, affordability collapses further, intensifying the challenges for first-time buyers, landlords, and renters alike. So even when prices dip slightly, first-time buyers aren't seeing relief. In fact, they're facing a harsher reality than ever before. For first-time buyers, London has become almost uninhabitable. While falling house prices might seem like an opportunity, the reality is far harsher. Mortgage rates, once under 2%, now hover between 5.5% and 6.5%. On a £400,000 mortgage, monthly payments have doubled from around £1,100 in 2021 to nearly £2,600 today. Lenders also require stress-tested affordability, meaning buyers must prove they could pay 8% or more if rates spike. For many, it's impossible to qualify. Meanwhile, deposits have skyrocketed. A decade ago, first-time buyers could get started with £75,000. Today, the average deposit is £115,000 or more. With rents consuming nearly half of young professionals' incomes, saving that kind of money is virtually impossible. Even with family support, most fall short, leaving them trapped in the rental market or dependent on government schemes that are no longer available. New-build properties, which now dominate entry-level listings, offer little relief. Units are smaller, more expensive per square foot, and riddled with hidden costs, service charges of £3,000 to £6,000 per year, leasehold restrictions, and shared ownership schemes that double mortgage and rent obligations. Buyers are promised to step onto the housing ladder, but many find themselves trapped, unable to staircase up or sell without losses. The effects are evident in the data. First-time buyer mortgage approvals in London hit a 15-year low in 2024. This isn't a temporary blip, it's a structural collapse. The housing ladder is broken at the base, creating ripple effects throughout the market. Sellers can't sell, builders can't build, and aspiring homeowners are sidelined. And this squeeze isn't limited to first-time buyers. Middle-class Londoners, once the backbone of the city's housing market, are also being pushed out. London's affordability crisis is now hitting everyone, not just renters or first-time buyers. Even middle-class families, who once formed the backbone of the housing market, are being squeezed from every direction. Homeowners are paying double for the same mortgages, while rents continue to climb. First-time buyers are frozen out of the market, and landlords are exiting in droves, shrinking rental supply. The consequences are stark. Families are struggling to pay rent and mortgages, sometimes relying on food banks despite being fully employed. Entire blocks of housing sit empty as landlords sell, while councils struggle to rehouse people, often placing them outside the city. Working professionals who once considered London home are now living paycheck to paycheck, facing the real possibility of eviction. Policy responses have been slow and reactive. Measures that might have helped were introduced too late or are insufficient. Government schemes like Help to Buy have ended, Section 21 evictions may be restricted, and mandatory property upgrades are expensive and looming. Meanwhile, developers pause projects due to financing bottlenecks, and investors retreat from a city that no longer guarantees returns. The result is a city where affordability is a distant memory. The housing system is no longer designed for ordinary Londoners. Landlords leave, investors vanish, developers halt projects, and families struggle to survive. Even those with stable incomes face uncertainty. The London dream, prosperity, opportunity, and stability, is slipping away. The question is no longer whether house prices will fall. They already are. The real question is who will still be living in London when the dust settles. London's housing market is facing a perfect storm. Mortgage rates have surged, leaving families paying double for homes they thought were affordable. Landlords are fleeing the market, driving rents to unprecedented highs. First-time buyers are trapped, unable to step onto the property ladder. Developers pause projects, and investors retreat, leaving the market without support. Meanwhile, policy interventions arrive too late, often adding complexity without solving the underlying problem. This crisis affects everyone, from middle-class homeowners to renters and aspiring first-time buyers. Families are forced to make impossible choices, balancing rent, mortgages, and daily living expenses. Teachers, nurses, and civil servants find themselves struggling despite full-time employment. Entire communities are displaced, and the social fabric of London faces disruption. The numbers tell a stark story, but the human impact is even more profound. Mortgage prisoners watch payments spiral beyond their means. Renters compete in bidding wars for tiny flats. First-time buyers save for decades, only to find the ladder broken at its base. Landlords exit, investors vanish, and the city's reputation as a safe, prosperous housing hub erodes. And yet, this is only the beginning. As mortgage defaults rise, repossessions increase, and supply continues to shrink, the ripple effects will continue to reshape London for years to come. The dream of affordable home ownership in the capital is under threat, and the reality for most is financial stress, displacement, and uncertainty. London was once a symbol of opportunity, a city where prosperity and property went hand in hand. Today, it's a cautionary tale of affordability gone wrong. The question now isn't whether house prices will fall further, they already are. The real question is who will still be living in London when the market finally resets, and whether the city will ever regain its place as a home for ordinary people.